My father, Dr. Ralph Mann, started it in the 90s, and throughout my life, I've worked with him. I was filming, and then I did a lot of the analysis, and so we built a model which combined all the best attributes of the best athletes in the world. And then as we film every year, it keeps enriching it. We know the things that make you faster. We know the things that you're doing wrong, the things that can make you get injured. And then that's her sprint model, start model, hurdle model, 3-point start for the combine. And it also applies to jumps, team sports, because basically what you're doing is sprinting. You're accelerating and sprinting. And so we've expanded that. And then I just put out my new book, The Science of Speed. I started in the real world on the track in 100-degree weather, dealing with somebody who has a huge ego. And, it's like, this is real, And so I wanted to write a book where anybody could read it. You could read it and get faster.
Welcome to the latest edition of Adeptus On-Air, and today we have a special guest in Dr. Amber Murphy. Dr. Murphy is a sports biomechanist and athlete performance coach. Amber, thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
So for starters, Doctor, tell us about your background and how you first got into the athlete performance space.
Well, my father founded CompuSport. He was a Olympic silver medalist in Munich and also a world record holder. So I was cheap labor as a child. So I started filming track meets when I was 8. And then when he decided he wanted to build a sprint model, I digitized. I did a lot of the digitizing for the film. Back then, you had to do it all by hand. And that was when I was a teenager. And then I did some statistical analysis on it to build the model to determine what elements of the body movements and data actually correlated with velocity, which is what we're looking for, speed.
Wow, that's awesome. You mentioned a medalist in Munich for your dad. What races or race did he run?
He ran the 400-meter hurdles.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. And what are some differences, if I can ask Dr. Murphy, between say a track athlete training a track athlete and maybe a football or soccer athlete or some other sports that you've worked with? What are some differences in your space with that?
Well, there's less things to unlearn when it comes to football and soccer because usually the biomechanics have not been addressed in any way. So that makes it easier. And you can show really big improvement. In track and field, we have to unlearn things that have been taught the wrong way. Or if somebody's an elite athlete, we're just looking for this much, this tiny little bit. And so it's harder to make improvements when there's just that much to improve.
Yeah, wow, wow. And over your span, how much has the sport of track changed or remained the same in terms of you training them? And like you said, there's such a small margin of error, like a 9.97 and a 9.95. I mean, it's super, the margin between first place and second place. Has the sport changed at all, or how much has it changed in that span?
It has changed. More people are willing to embrace the science of it and try to understand something about biomechanics. Some of the things have stayed the same where oftentimes coaches are resistant to having an outsider come in. But we've established ourselves pretty well in this space where we're not here to take credit. We're not here to undermine you. We're here to work with you as a team to help your athletes succeed.
Makes sense. That makes sense. And the age-old question, Dr. Murphy, that comes up a lot is injury prevention. How does an athlete best master that? I see that in all sports. You basketball, football, track. There's injuries. How do you best go towards being proactive in that space as opposed to just reactive?
From a biomechanical standpoint, you become educated on what the mechanism of the injuries are for your particular sport. In track and field, the most common injury is hamstring,
Mm,
and there's a specific mechanism for that. And if you understand that, then it helps motivate you to improve your mechanics, so that you can help prevent injury. And there's other things you can do outside of the biomechanical space, and that's for all sports, but I don't think it's addressed really very well at all in most sports where you could make biomechanical changes and that could prevent injury. And injury is such a debilitating thing, especially when they're young.
Yep.
And so we want the injury to never happen because you're always going to be paying for it in some way, even if you rehab it well.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great point. You mentioned hamstring injuries. I've seen that a lot in the football space as well. Why is that the most prevalent injury in track, in your opinion? Where it's very leg heavy. You got your calves, your quads, why hamstring?
Because you're putting a demand on your hamstring that's very unusual, and it's the same with sprinting in football or soccer. When you get your leg up to the top, you have your upper leg and your lower leg, right? So you're using your from the hip pulling up, but then you have to change direction. And as you're pulling up, the lower leg is swinging this way. So your actually hamstring has to stop the upward movement, reverse it and go back down, and then stop the lower leg from swinging out and bring it back in. So that is a unique movement and it's very difficult on the hamstring.
Wow, wow, I never thought about that. But you're exactly right. That is complicated. With that, and even rehabbing hamstrings, I've seen. 'Cause I used to cover professional football. Just when the athlete feels like they got it right, or I'm back. It's not quite. They end up re-injuring in that again. It seems like they're very prone to re-injuring that. Why is the rehab process to that so tricky?
I think they don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. I think a lot of people probably do a really good job to the extent of their knowledge, but I also think it's really important to look at it from all different angles. Like a lot of times in track and field, somebody will hurt the hamstring because they're getting stronger without fixing their mechanics. And so that makes more torque. That means more force. That's why that ends up happening. So I can look at an athlete and tell the coach, if they get stronger, they're going to hurt their hamstring. So these are the things you that we need to do together to make sure. And there's a piece of, flexibility, mobility, recovery. There's all the pieces, but I think maybe some of the rehab, especially in football, is more heavy on the recovery and not addressing the root cause.
Yep, yep. No, you're exactly right. I do see that a lot. In terms of diet, it's another big question a lot of you. How much does diet impact the program of an athlete?
Diet is a huge factor, especially if you're talking about developing athletes, if they're not getting the right nutrition, if they're, this is like general health to me. You need to make sure your general health is good, your blood levels are good, you're getting enough vitamins and you're getting enough protein and not too much protein. Not a big proponent of supplements at all. I believe in real food. I'm not a nutritionist. That's not my specialty, but that's what I believe because my athletes get drug tested and a lot of the supplements in the United States aren't well regulated. And so you really don't know what it is. So it's much better to eat real food and you know what you're getting and what you're ingesting. So, but I think that it's a piece of the puzzle, just like all the rest of the pieces. And I think it's really important to have a good reference person that you can go to or become educated by reading about it and actually having that as part of your specialty if you're a coach, or have somebody that manages that for you because, I'm a biomechanist, so my strength is this. Other people
Yeah,
know way more about nutrition than I do. And I don't
yeah.
think you have to be an expert at everything. You can be really good at one thing and then have other people who can all contribute in different ways.
Yeah, great point. Great point. You mentioned food. I know you don't want to go too heavy on the nutrition side, but just curious if you have any particular foods that you see as pretty universal that is easy to recommend for athletes, no matter if you're running track or playing soccer or what have you.
I'm a big fan of chocolate milk, especially the ultra filtered one, the low fat.
Huh?
'Cause you get the
Why
carbs
so?
and the protein together. It's a good combination of carbs and protein post-workout. Um, I don't know much about pre-workout. Sometimes that can sabotage you if you're looking for a certain body composition, but post-workout, I'm a big fan of chocolate milk.
That's awesome. That's an easy one for people to take too, you know, as opposed to some of
Yeah,
the vegetables and things that might be a little tougher to take down. So okay,
yeah.
that's awesome. Chocolate milk. Tell us a little more about CompuSport and how it got started, and just give some more information on your company and how it works.
Okay, so it started, my father, Dr. Ralph Mann, started it in the 90s. And throughout my life, I've worked with him. Like I said at the beginning, I was filming and then I did a lot of the analysis. And so we built a model which combined all the best attributes of the best athletes in the world. And then as we film every year, it keeps enriching it. It keeps putting those people in. And then we've done analysis. We know the things that make you faster. We know the things that you're doing wrong, the things that can make you get injured. And then that's for sprint model, start model, hurdle model, 3-point start for the combine. Um, and it also applies to jumps, team sports, because basically what you're doing is sprinting. You're
Yeah.
accelerating and sprinting when you watch people on the field. That's what they're doing. And so we've expanded that. And then I just put out my new book, The Science of Speed.
Yeah.
And what I really tried to do there is we had a book before, but it was very textbook like. And so I wanted it, my voice is more of a layman's terms I prefer, because I don't want there to be a barrier, because I was working in the field before I got my PhD. So I didn't start in the lab. I started in the real world on the track in 100-degree weather, dealing with somebody who has a huge ego. And, it's like, this is real, And
Yeah.
so I wanted to write a book where anybody could read it. You could read it and get faster.
Wow. I was actually going to ask you about that. If you can just elaborate a little more and tell us about, what are some of the contents in the book? What can we learn, from the science of speed? It's a great title also as well.
Well, I tried to explain the science and the math of this without it being intimidating. And I talk about things like foot strike, body angles, ground time, air time, that kind of stuff. But I also kind of describe what to look for. And when I go on the track, talk to the athlete and the coach, of course. But I feel like a lot of the times the athletes rely too much on the coach. The coach is supposed to do everything for them. And I really am not a believer in that. I believe in empowering yourself to improve. And if somebody's 18, 19 years old, they're smart enough and old enough to figure it out. And I tell them what to look for. And so it's not, it's not magic. You can see it. These are the numbers. This is what you need to do. This is what happens if you don't do it.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. And Dr. Murphy, some of the best athletes you've dealt with, what are some common characteristics or traits that you see in them that maybe other people can emulate, especially youth athletes coming up? What are some of the common things that you see from the great ones that you've worked with?
They're willing to learn. They're willing to change. They want to get better. They know it's going to be painful. They can handle constructive criticism. Sometimes it's hard when they have really big egos, and they're used to being better than everybody else. Okay. At this thing, they're used to everybody telling them how good they are. But I have to tell them what they're doing wrong. And so
Yeah.
that's sometimes hard because they don't want to hear it, or they're not ready to hear it. But I've always felt like I help the people that want to be helped. And I will go and I will put my heart and soul into you. And if you respond wonderfully, then great. And I'll come back and work as hard as I can. And then if you're just not buying in, then that's okay. But, I'm not going to spend my time on that. I'm going to spend my time on somebody who's excited about this, who, like, I worked with Devin Charlton less than a week after she broke the world record. And she
Wow.
was like, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And sorry.
It's okay.
And what the point was that she broke the world record in the 60-meter hurdles. She wanted to get on the podium outdoors. She wanted to get on the podium in the 100-meter hurdles. So she had never done that. And so she needed me to fix some things with her, work together with her coach. to help find things to get that extra bit at the end of the race. And then she just recently won the gold medal in the Commonwealth Games. So she got on the
Wow.
podium. That was her goal, and that's what she did.
Wow. Was it hard to find things from a world record holder, or was it pretty simple, for you? Because there's always things to find. I'm saying
There's
at that
always things.
level.
Yeah, at that level, there's always things to find. They're harder to fix though, because we just want a little bit of change, a little bit of change, just little thing, this little thing. And so, but I actually hadn't worked with her in a couple of years. So there were some significant things we could work on. And especially since you've got the start and the hurdle and between the hurdles. So that's three things that you can work different things on. So I worked with her on each one of those things, and we found at least one or two things in each one of those that we could work on.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And she was willing, and she, took it
She
and
was
it made.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great success story with that. And on the topic of AI, I mean, AI is the hot topic everywhere. I'm sure it's also being used in your field. How do you implement it in your practice, and what has been the result?
Well, I think the thing that people don't understand about AI is that it's a tool. And we started working with AI about 6 years ago, which was well before it went mainstream.
Oh,
And what
wow,
I
6 years.
did was I would do the analysis of an athlete. Then I'd send and I had AI do the analysis of the athlete. And then I tell AI all the ways it was doing it wrong because it doesn't know anything about track and field. It doesn't know anything about biomechanics. It doesn't understand what this is. And then I just had to keep going over and over and over and over and over and over again until it stopped making mistakes. So I think you have to ask, who taught this tool? If I'm going to ask AI about something, who taught it? How educated is it? And how reliable is it?
Yeah,
And
and
even
and
if it is educated and reliable, it doesn't have the art of coaching. So it can tell you, but it doesn't understand the human element of it and the how to approach it as a relationship, which I think even as a biomechanist, I have a relationship with the athlete and I have a relationship with the coach. And the coach, this relationship with the athlete is also very important. So I think you can use it as a tool, but it's not going to replace somebody who's really good at their job.
no, great point, great point. And you said 5 or 6 years ago. Wow, that's in an AI landscape. That's a long time ago.
Yes.
So you've been using it for a long time. Has it improved? Maybe not in those areas, but has it improved in some other areas from when you first started using it?
It's gotten a little bit easier to use, but for the most part, we write our own code. So we pretty much taught it, and then we're just using it because we know it's a good tool and we've done it enough, and it's reiterated the skill enough so that we know it does a good job.
Got you, got you. And what are some other interesting changes? Doesn't necessarily have to be technology. Just could be in coaching or technique. Or what are some interesting changes you see in athlete performance coming down the pike in the next 5 or 10 years? Where are the trends going in that respect?
You see, there's going to be a lot more data for younger people. I think that there's going to be a lot. We've developed a talent identification program for speed. So I think that there's going to be some more of that talent identification because I think that's really important. Um, I see, I'm hoping to see that the people that don't do the right things with everything don't succeed because you have to be vigilant about everything. It has to be your job. If you're a collegiate athlete or a professional athlete, you have a full-time job. And making sure your nutrition is right and your biomechanics are right and your fitness is right and your strength is right and you're going to your PT and you're doing like that, all that stuff matters. And we have so much talent. And if we develop it correctly, I think that the people who do everything right are going to be the ones that succeed.
Yeah, great point, Dr. Murphy. I've asked some other guests about this before, so I just want to get your take on the youth sports landscape. What some people are more for just general, play multiple sports. Some are kind of, maybe there's a certain point where you start to go into specialization. Uh, you know, from your perspective, working with the top athletes in certain areas, just what's your general philosophy on, say, a 9 or 10-year old, and then maybe going up to a teenager, in terms of should they just have fun playing multiple sports? Should they start specializing if they see they're gifted in one area? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Not a big fan of early specialization. Um, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, let them go have fun, let them do different things, different body movements. I think you can become generally athletic in that way. A, a lot of times we see if you early specialize and you're really good when you're young, everybody kind of catches up to you. So there's a lot of different body types in the world, right? Sometimes I see a 13 or 14-year-old kid and he looks like he's about 25, and then there's a 13-year-old kid that looks 9. So, I mean, I just think that putting that kind of pressure on a kid that early is counterproductive and not good for their body, and I don't necessarily think it's good for their mind either. I think if you're talking about high school, then yes, you can specialize, but there has to be rest. I don't think rest is prioritized as much as it should be. More isn't always more. It need to be strategic, and because then you end up injured. It's just going to happen. So, um, be strategic, understand what you're doing to their human body, where they're at, because their cardiovascular system is different than ours. Their brain is working in a different way when they're a teenager. They're developing. A lot of them are still growing. I mean, I grew an inch in college, so I mean, I was competing at, UF and I grew an inch. So, I mean, we have to let their bodies develop. So I think you have to have somebody that's developmentally appropriate.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's great advice. And yeah, I see, youth sports and, already at 7, 8 years old, they're telling kids, hey, you need to play soccer or, focus on basketball and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know if that marketplace is going in the right direction with that, but at least from what I've seen. But
Well, that's the
um,
great thing about being a parent. You can just say, you know what? This isn't about being a pro. You're 10 years old. Be 10.
exactly, exactly. Have fun, be 10. You're exactly right with that. And Dr. Murphy, I wanted to ask, like, where can people find your book, find your social channels, all your great work, online. Where can people find listening
So
in the
my
audience?
website is copysport.org. My book is on Amazon's The Science of Speed. And then if you look for me, Dr. Amber Murphy on Instagram or Facebook, I'm on there. And then also CompuSports on LinkedIn.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Amber Murphy, for the great conversation and insight. And thank you for your sharing your expertise on Adeptus On Air.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.